Other elements of a great photograph are composition and design. The placement of objects is critical if you want to make your photos look finished and artistic. It's a good idea to showcase the main subject. You can make the subject stand out by adjusting the placement of the subject, the lighting, or the focus. You can even vary the background and foreground elements. Practice seeing what these different principles can do for your photos. You should also consider the orientation of your photo. Do you want a vertical image or a horizontal image? Some subjects look better vertically and others horizontally. It depends upon the look and feel you're going for. It's also important to think about placing the horizon line. The horizon is where the sky meets the land. A great photo will typically show the most important subjects in the upper portion of the frame where the eyes naturally want to look. But sometimes it works best to divide the picture horizontally by the horizon. You can move the horizon line higher or lower depending on your subject matter. Another good idea is to place your subject off of center. This sometimes creates a much more pleasing image. The rule of thirds advocates dividing your viewfinder into thirds both horizontally and vertically, and then placing your most important subjects on the cross points. A great photo is often simple. Remember that it sometimes requires patience to get just the right shot. One way to direct the viewer's eyes in interesting ways and to make a picture interesting to look at is to notice the lines, shapes, and textures in your subject and apply composition principles that accentuate these things. Sometimes a great picture is waiting for you in the patterns and repetitions of daily life that often go unnoticed. You can create the illusion of depth in your photo simply by adjusting the focus and lighting. Finally, use foreground objects and natural frames to enclose and give context to your primary subject. To review, let's go through some examples of these situations to manually apply the principles learned in this DVD. First, let's approach a portrait situation. It's always smart to first preset the white balance to match the current lighting. Use the preset or custom white balance. To make the subject the focus point, position the subject in the frame in a way that will draw more attention to the subject. You can achieve this by using the rule of thirds. Make sure the focus point is correct. Another great way to give focus to the subject is by blurring the background. This effect is achieved by opening the aperture. Remember, the smaller the f number, the larger the aperture opening. After the aperture is set, adjust the shutter speed to achieve a proper exposure. By letting in more light, you create a short depth of field. This will allow your focus point to be in sharp focus while the background will have a soft focus. The next common situation is a landscape. You'll usually want the whole landscape to be in sharp focus. To achieve this, the aperture will need to be set for a very narrow opening. Remember, the larger the f number, the smaller the depth of field. A small opening creates a very long depth of field. This mode will give you a sharp focus in both the foreground and the background. Then adjust the shutter speed to achieve the proper exposure. In this setting, the shutter speed can get pretty slow, so be sure to steady your camera or use a tripod to avoid camera shake. When taking pictures at sporting events or shooting subjects with a lot of motion, it's a good idea to prepare your camera before the action begins. Here are some tips to help you prepare. First, preset your white balance. Second, switch your AI servo to AI focus so the camera will constantly be focusing on the moving object. Third, set your camera to the continuous shooting mode so when the action happens, you only need to hold down the shutter button to capture several frames per second. Last, position yourself to have the best angle for the action. If you want your subject to be in sharp focus, turn your ISO up around 400 to 1600. Next, adjust your shutter speed relatively high, then adjust your aperture for a proper exposure. Take a couple of practice shots to fine-tune. Now you're ready for action. If you want to show a little blur to add aesthetic effect, slightly slow the shutter speed. Find the joy of digital photography that comes from making new discoveries and observing the world around you in creative ways. We hope you've enjoyed learning more about your camera. We know this new information will give you enough confidence and know-how to take your photography skills to new levels. Remember, you can refer back to any section of this DVD at any time. Just select the topics you want to review from the main menu or table of contents. Watch for more Quickpro guides on newly released cameras. You'll also find tutorials that demonstrate how to shoot great pictures of sporting events and special family occasions, the basics of scrapbooking and portrait photography. Thanks for watching.